Hi guys, before we get into it, a very quick disclaimer that you'll find all my other Hammer reviews in my Hammer playlist, and there will be spoilers today for Satanic Rites of Dracula. So we've reached the 8th of 9 Dracula films, and remarkably, we've still not had a bad one up until this point, and I include Satanic Rites of Dracula in that. I'm a little bit nervous about the final one to come involving Kung Fu or something, but for now we are literally 8 for 8 and I'm quite amazed by that. So this time around, Dracula, who we last saw dead at the end of Dracula AD, he's not only alive again at the start of this film, but he's in charge of some big corporation building. He's got an entire cult working for him out of a country manor house. He's got MPs in his pocket, scientists in his pocket, this whole network of underlings. He's become a supervillain with this massive organisation. It's quite the turnaround for Dracula since Dracula AD. He's basically become a Bond villain in this film to an extent, and this film does feel like an early James Bond film, but without the budget. It's like Vampires meets James Bond almost. And the scene that best sums that up for me is when Van Helsing Jr., as I call him, he goes to visit Dracula in his 11th floor office or something, and the two of them just sit down and have a nice friendly conversation. They're not killing each other yet, they're just kind of feeling each other out. But it's straight out of a Bond film. You know, when Bond would meet the villain like halfway through and they just have a little conversation where they know that they're going to end up killing each other, but they're prepared to be polite for now. It's just like that. The only thing that's missing is Dracula having a sliding trapdoor on the bottom of his elevator to try and kill Van Helsing on his way up. But apart from that, it is absolutely Bond 101, and I found it very enjoyable as a result, because I'm a big James Bond fan. And there's a Bondian-style villain's plot here where Dracula's trying to come up with some vampiric disease or something to spread throughout the population. But more than that, the film, it's got loads of little gunfights and car chases and spy work. It's quite something. It feels different even to what we got with Dracula AD. So we've got Christopher Lee coming back as Dracula. We've got Van Helsing in place, played by Peter Cushing again. We've even got the same director from Dracula AD, Alan Gibson, and also another actor, Michael Coles, who played the really good cop character from the previous one. He's back again for this one. The only person who's not come back is Stephanie Beacham, who played Jessica Van Helsing in the previous one. I don't know why she's not in this one. I don't know if she was even asked to come back for this one or whether she just didn't want to, but in her place we've got Joanna Lumley playing the Jessica character. It's a real shame that Beacham couldn't come back though, because even though I've got no problems with Joanna Lumley as an actress, she's very, very different from Stephanie Beacham. It's like they just picked the first available good actress rather than try and find a good fit, because this feels like a completely different character now, what we get here with Jessica, which is a bit of a shame. But on the whole, this is still the Dracula film with the best continuity in the entire series, I would say, because the storyline more or less follows on, and because we've got so many returning personnel. I would say it's got the best continuity overall. It does feel sort of like a part 2 to Dracula AD's part 1, albeit with a very big intermission between the two parts so that Dracula can do his bust to boom transition off camera. For some reason, Dracula's underlings are all wearing these sheepskin tops and driving around on mopeds. It's the weirdest outfit for a bunch of red shirts I think I've ever seen. It's like Dracula's got an army of young John Motsons doing his bidding for him. What did he say to the staff on day one of this company? Something like, "So, I want you all to wear sheepskin, so I know who's Team Dracula and who isn't." Sheep, very symbolic, because people back in Bavaria used to hide from me like sheep. He's also got someone who looks like Michelle Yeoh to kill people for him in sacrificial ceremonies. We see one ceremony with this blonde virgin on an altar about to get offed, and this ceremony, it goes on for a long, long time. We must cut back to this ceremony about 100 times. I'm surprised the blonde virgin doesn't fall asleep during this thing, because it just seems to take forever to the knife to finally go into her. I think it's about halfway through the film, this ceremony finally ends. Ooh, it's a long one, but essentially the plot in this is Dracula's cult versus the secret branch of MI5 for a time, and Van Helsing just happens to be helping them. There will be victims on both sides throughout the story. Each side will score points against the other, but ultimately it comes down to another showdown between Dracula and Van Helsing, and possibly the final one between Lee and Cushing in this series, because I don't think Lee is in the final film. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Dracula gets a stupid death, as he always does, so he stumbles into some brambles that he can't get out of. That is the end, basically, for one of cinema's greatest villains, brambles. It's set up earlier in the movie because somebody, probably Van Helsing, is going through a list of the ways that vampires can be killed, and he lists them off. He goes, so there's garlic, there's silver bullets, stake to the heart, hawthorn trees, and I almost stopped the film. I almost pressed pause because I was like, what? Whoa! What did you just say? I've never heard that one before. And sure enough, this is a setup for the end of the movie when Dracula just happens to stumble into a hawthorn tree right outside his manor. I didn't even know that hawthorn trees existed. I've heard of the Hawthorns, home of West Bromwich Albion. I've never heard of hawthorn trees, but that is what Dracula dies on in this film. I sort of knew this before I'd even put the film on, because the version that I bought, on the menu screen, there's a picture of Dracula with, like, thorns in his head. He looks like he's auditioning for Passion of the Christ. He's got, like, blood coming down his face. And as soon as I saw that picture, I thought to myself, yep, that is 100%, that is Dracula's stupid death in this movie. Right, where's the play button? The hawthorn tree is not the only self-defeatist thing about Dracula's manor. He's also got an underground basement full of vampire women. He's got them chained to the walls, and this is a very dangerous trap that intruders can potentially fall into if they try and take a sneaky route into the main building, as Joanna Lumley finds out to her cost almost. But there's a convenient button on the wall that you can hit that makes the sprinklers go on, and the water will kill all the vampires instantly. So yes, this manor is very dangerous, but Dracula's left some things lying around just to help you turn the tables a little bit, you know, hawthorn trees and buttons that kill vampires. So it's very nice of him. I've no idea why these vampires are actually locked in the basement in the first place. I must have missed that plot point, but it is a little bit of a messy script at times. It does feel with some of these 70s Hammer films like they were knocking out the scripts quite quickly, and they're just not as polished as they should be, really. I mean, they were making a lot of films by this point in a desperate bid to stay viable. I mean, it feels like I've been on the 70s Hammer films forever at this point, and I'm still only at like 1973, 1974 or something like that. But I just get the impression with a lot of these later Hammer films that the scripts and the screenplays rushed out quite quickly, but then once filming starts, you still get that really high level of professionalism and quality filmmaking that you'd always associate with Hammer, and then because of that, these films are still really watchable and enjoyable. But I mean, if you look at the final details of the story, possibly a second draft required here, because I mean, maybe the vampires in the basement thing is explained somewhere, but I had no idea who the undercover cop was at the beginning. I was watching this whole subplot play out, and I had no idea what was going on, why he was escaping, who he was, who the guards were. And then you've got the fact that the two biggest stars, Lee and Cushing, they don't turn up for an awful long time. Van Helsing turns up after about 20 minutes, I think, but it takes a lot longer for Dracula to appear. And when he does, it's in a scene that's really throwaway. He just kind of wanders into somebody's bedroom, drains their blood, and then wanders off again, and then we don't see him for a while. I'd put money on the idea that scene, that first scene of Dracula's, was only inserted just to get Lee into the film a lot quicker, because it's really... It's something that, if it was taken out, you wouldn't even notice, really. And I did wonder at the time, okay, where is Dracula come from, and what is he doing in the manor? Because you don't know that he's the big boss guy at this point. So it feels a little bit like, you know, in Halloween 6, when Michael Myers is just randomly wandering around Smith's Grove, like a real loose cannon. I thought the same thing here. I thought, does everybody else in this manor know that Dracula's just randomly wandering around, going into people's bedrooms? It's very, very odd. I do slightly prefer Dracula 1972 AD to this one, but only by a little bit. I just found the viewpoint in that film more interesting. That film, you viewed all the events through the eyes of these youngsters, and they were really hip, and they had a good sense of humour, and they had some great phrases of the time, like, oh, watch out, it's the fuzz, and stuff like that, and then they got in over their heads with this Dracula plot that came along, where in this film there's not really a viewpoint that you can latch onto. I personally felt like I was watching this film through a camera in the sky, and just looking at all these chess pieces on the board just going to war with each other, and that felt like it made for a colder experience for me, but still incredibly entertaining. I mean, when you watch people getting shot, like great bullet holes appearing all over the place, and car chases throughout London, and all the other good stuff that happens in this film, it's still hugely watchable. And I think most people who like the first film will also like this one, whereas people who didn't like Dracula AD, I'm not massively sure they'll come around with this one. And I guess one final criticism to finish off with: the characters who do come back from the first film, there's almost no reference to the adventures or the travails that they had with that original film. When I say original, I mean the first one that takes place in the 70s. So it's time to show you the version of the film that I've got for this. Here is my Blu-ray copy of Satanic Rites of Dracula. And a big thank you to whoever it was in the comments who advised me to get this version and not one of the many DVD releases that there has been for this, because apparently DVDs of this movie are poor in quality. That's what I've heard anyway. So my advice would be to go for the Blu-ray, although this was sadly quite pricey. It cost me £20, which is a lot for a film that doesn't have any features. It's just a bare bones copy of the movie. But it does have some things on the inside, to be fair. I'll just quickly show you those. So, I mean, I'm not a big fan of postcards with Blu-ray releases, but this one came with some. So here are some of the various postcards. This one is actually the same picture that's on the Blu-ray menu. That's the thing that I saw before I put the film on. And it also comes with a poster, and I probably should have put this on the wall actually while I was doing the review, but sadly I'm out of blue tack. It's a really cool poster. So here it is. Have I got it the right way up? Yeah. So there we have it. There is the poster that comes with it. Extremely cool. Sadly, I'm not going to put it up in my living room because my wife's a bit fussy about things like that. But I'll tell you, if I ever get divorced, this is going straight on the wall. Really, really good. Right, I'll put that away later. For now, let's get to the bag of terror and find out what sort of score I'm going to give Satanic Rites of Dracula. So we got 1, 2, 3, 3.5 bloody axes out of 5. That is the same score I gave Dracula AD 72, I think, but I do slightly prefer that other one. So maybe I'm being slightly generous today with my score, but I did enjoy it. It was a good time. And I go to the 9th and final film, feeling good that just maybe we can get all the way to the end of this review series without experiencing a bad Dracula film. But that last one looks a bit dodgy, so I don't know. We'll see what we get with that. But until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.